Since the days of Gibeah, Israel, we have sinned. There we have taken our stand, and will not war overtake the guilty at Gibeah. I am coming to punish them, declares the Lord. Nations will muster against them to punish them for their crimes.
There are three forms of the virtue of chastity. The first is that of spouses, the second that of widows, and the third that of virgins. We do not praise any one of them to the exclusion of the others. Pride and lust are the two crimes of Gibeah that destroy true worship of the Lord by eradicating charity of neighbor and thus love of God. Good deeds are born out of the gift of the fear of the Lord, which replaces lust altogether, fulfilling the catechesis of the wedding between mankind and the Lord. The binding is not meant to restrict choice, but to embrace freedom from the wiles of the ancient serpent, the real enemy, the devil. This can be easier to do with the rosary, just FYI to save 10 years of trouble. Jesus enjoins his disciples to prefer him to everything and everyone and bids them renounce all that they have for his sake and that of the gospel. Shortly before his passion, he gave them the example of the poor widow of Jerusalem who, out of her poverty, gave all that she had to live on. The precept of detachment from riches is obligatory for entrance into the kingdom of heaven. All Christ's faithful are to direct their affections rightly, lest they be hindered in their pursuit of perfect charity by the use of worldly things and by an adherence to riches which is contrary to the spirit of evangelical poverty. Hence the reason for the blunt teaching is to cut out your eye or sever your arm if they cause you to sin. Metaphorically speaking, renunciation begins with humility. Realizing through self-knowledge, through the practice of chastity, can humility be truly formed. Admit guilt when that day of recompense comes. There is no reason to fret. Blessed are the poor in spirit. The Beatitudes reveal an order of happiness and grace, of beauty and peace. Jesus celebrates the joy of the poor, to whom the kingdom already belongs. The word speaks of voluntary humility as poverty in spirit. The apostle gives an example of God's poverty when he says, "For your sakes he became poor." The Lord grieves over the rich because they find their consolation in the abundance of goods. Let the proud seek and love earthly kingdoms, but blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Abandonment to the providence of the Father in heaven frees us from anxiety about tomorrow. Trust in God is a preparation for the blessedness of the poor. They shall see God. Chastity means the successful integration of sexuality within the person and thus the inner unity of man and his bodily and spiritual being. Sexuality, in which man's belonging to the bodily and biological world is expressed, becomes personal and truly human when it is integrated into the relationship of one person to another, in the complete and lifelong mutual gift of a man and a woman. The virtue of chastity therefore involves the integrity of the person and the integrality of the gift. The virtue of chastity comes under the cardinal virtue of temperance, which seeks to permeate the passions and appetites of the senses with reason. Self-mastery is a long and exacting work. One can never consider it acquired once and for all. It presupposes a renewed effort at all stages of life. The effort required can be more intense in certain periods, such as when the personality is being formed during childhood and adolescence. The virtue of chastity blossoms in friendship. It shows the disciple how to follow and imitate him who has chosen us as his friends, who has given himself totally to us and allows us to participate in his divine estate. Chastity is a promise of immortality. Chastity is expressed notably in friendship with one's neighbor. Whether it develops between persons of the same or opposite sex, friendship represents a great good for all. It leads to spiritual communion. Those who are engaged to marry are called to live chastity and continence. They should see in this time of testing a discovery of mutual respect, an apprenticeship in fidelity, and the hope of receiving one another from God. They should reserve for marriage the expressions of affection that belong to married love. They will help each other grow in chastity. Sexual sin is in the category of impurity sins that blackens the heart. In short, it makes you dumb, slack of mind, and unresponsive to pain. Impurity does not just make you lazy, but it slowly kills the nerves that connect your body not just with yourself, but with nature itself, and this obviously includes the connection with God. The elation derived from the gratification is a perversion of the intent to procreate. To seek pleasure unto itself is the signpost of the true 666, where humans worship themselves as gods. If there is no intent to procreate, then sex is simply not allowed in order to prevent death. Here is a spoiler alert. Homosexuals are just as sinful as heterosexuals if they both seek pleasure from sexual gratification. What is sinful is where a man lies with a man as he would with a woman. This is called sodomy. If there is no sodomy, then the homosexual does not sin. Simply being attracted to the same sex is dysfunctional, like how spina bifida is dysfunctional but does not incur a penalty of death for simply being disabled. So homosexuals are immoral if they have sodomy, not just being attracted to the same sex. The same immorality applies to unmarried couples engaging in sex as well. This is called fornication. It is just that no one ever talks about that aspect of the sin. People enjoy blaming others for their failures instead of simply repenting. They like blaming all perversion on homosexuals. This is not true. It is not just homosexuals who must be chaste, but everyone is called to chastity. Both sodomy and fornication are equally corrupting and carried a death sentence under the Mosaic law. It was not just homosexuals being singled out and persecuted as many like to believe. You see, all perverts, small and great, are equally held accountable before the throne of God. Do not think as I did that this means that it is okay to instead think sexual thoughts as long as they just remain thoughts. This sin is called onanism or masturbation. This too is greatly tarnishing on the heart. No harm, no foul, right? Wrong. Simply put, if you intend to have no children, remain single and chaste. In the life to come there will not be marriage, meaning no sex, and its correlating bosom buddies, sodomy and onanism. Better to begin purging them now rather than later.
When the two witnesses have completed their witnessing, the beast that comes out after the abyss will make war on them and conquer them and kill them. Their corpses lie in the main street of the great city known by the prophetic name Sodom and Egypt, in which their Lord was crucified.